This happened almost a month ago. I was 34 and had just come back home. I wanted a fresh start, hoping the forests nearby would spark some inspiration. I thought I knew these woods, but I wasn't sure if I really understood them. As I hiked deeper, it got quiet, just the rustling leaves and my footsteps. That's when I stumbled upon an old cabin. It leaned awkwardly to one side, half collapsed and forgotten. I hadn't seen it before, and a strange feeling washed over me. I picked my way inside. Dust hung in the air, settling on my skin. On a makeshift table, I found a journal. The pages were yellowed and filled with handwritten notes. The more I read, the more unsettled I became. I saw stories about shadowy figures lurking at the edge of the trees and whispers that didn't seem to have a source. My heart raced as I read about people who had come here and never returned. I thought maybe it was just the ramblings of a lonely person. I wanted to believe that. That night, I decided to camp nearby. I thought I could film some of the places mentioned in the journal. As darkness fell, I heard something. Footsteps. They were not mine. My heart pounded. I peered out of my tent, but didn't see anything. The air was cold, thick. I thought I heard someone whispering my name, but I couldn't be sure. A chill traveled down my spine. The next day, I dove back into the journal. Each entry was weirder than the last. Animals behaving strangely, men who turned up missing, never found. I thought the stories were tall tales meant to scare anyone who heard them. Still, my unease grew. When evening came again, I was packing my gear when I felt something watching me. I turned, thinking I'd see a deer or something, but there was nothing. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe I was repeating the stories in my head. I wasn't sure. Then I heard a rustle to my right. I spun around, ready to capture anything on film. That's when I saw him, standing among the trees, just staring at me. I wanted to call out, but the words lodged in my throat. I waited, hoping he would say something. He didn't move. I felt an urge to run, and that's when he whispered, "Why are you here?" I turned to grab my gear, but when I looked back, he was gone. The forest closed in around me, filled with a heavy stillness. I felt the realization settle in. This place held secrets. Maybe I was about to find out what they were. That night, I didn't sleep. I listened for whispers and footsteps. The fear wrapped around me. I didn't want to find out what lay in the shadows, but a part of me wanted answers. I don't know what I'll do next. I can't forget that whisper. Why are you here?
Echoes in my mind. The forest is alive. I can feel it. I woke up the next morning with a knot in my stomach. The sun filtered through the trees, but it felt strange and distorted, like the forest was trying to hide something from me. I shook off the unreal sensation and decided I needed to leave the campsite. I packed my things quickly and headed back towards the cabin. Maybe I could find more clues in the journal. As I made my way through the underbrush, the forest felt different than before. The rustling leaves now sounded more aggressive, as if they were whispering secrets meant solely for me. I forced myself to push those thoughts down. It was just my mind playing tricks. Once I reached the cabin, I stepped inside. The air was stale. I sat at the table, flipping through the journal once again, desperate for answers. One entry caught my eye. It was dated years ago and detailed an encounter with the same shadowy figure. The author claimed the forest had a will, that it could bend reality to trap its visitors. My heart raced as I read about people becoming lost, disoriented, unable to find their way out. I nearly closed the journal, but forced myself to keep reading. I needed to know. Then I noticed something new, a drawing sketched hastily on the margin of a page. It looked like the man I had seen, but his eyes were different, wider and unnatural. Below the drawing there was a note. He wants you to join him. A cold wave of fear washed over me. I could still hear that whisper, still feel the weight of unseen eyes. I wondered if maybe I had chosen the wrong place to seek inspiration. What if this was a trap? I forced myself to breathe. I couldn't let fear win. After hours of poring over the journal, I recognized the growing tension. It felt like the very walls of the cabin were closing in on me. I needed air. I stepped outside. The forest was eerily still. I walked back toward the path that had led me here, but it seemed different, less familiar. I frowned, glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadowy figure again. As I walked, I only heard the unnerving quiet. That's when I noticed something glinting on the ground. It was a small object, half buried in the earth. Curiosity got the better of me. I bent down and unearthed it. An old locket, tarnished but still intact. I opened it and my breath hitched. Inside was a photograph of a woman. Her eyes were wide with a haunting sadness that sent chills through me. As I stared at her image, the forest seemed to shift. I felt something push against my back, urging me forward. I stumbled back, clenching the locket tightly. Then I heard it, the whisper, clearer this time. "Join us." Panic coursed through me. I turned to run back to the
cabin, but the path had vanished. The trees towered above me, closing in. The shadows began to stretch, reaching for me. What had I walked into? With every ounce of strength, I dashed in a random direction, away from the whispers, away from the secrets. But it was too late. I could feel the forest pulling me in, holding me tighter. I needed to escape. I ran. The branches whipped against my skin, sharp like claws. Each frantic step felt heavier, like the ground wanted to swallow me whole. I screamed, though I didn't know if anyone could hear me. Help! My voice cracked and faded into the pressing silence. Then I stumbled over something, roots woven dangerously across the ground. I fell, hitting the earth hard. Pain lanced through my ankle, but I pushed myself back up, no time to stop. The whispers echoed in the distance, growing fainter, but still present. I had to keep moving. I forced myself to breathe through the panic. Somewhere in my mind, logic fought back. I remembered the journal. It had spoken of people getting lost in the forest, of a way to navigate back. If I could just find something familiar. I scanned the trees desperately, and then there it was. A large boulder off to my right, the same one I had seen earlier while hiking. I pressed forward, limping towards it. Relief washed over me the closer I got. This had to be a sign. I leaned against the boulder, panting. Above me, the leaves rustled erratically, as if caught in a sudden wind. I glanced up, and my heart dropped. A figure stood among the trees. It was the man from the journal, the shadowy figure I had seen before. His features were clearer now, his eyes wide, almost too wide, as if he were staring straight through me. I couldn't move. "Why are you fighting?" he said, his voice echoing, twisted. "You are part of this now." I wanted to scream, but fear choked the sound in my throat. I squeezed the locket in my pocket, remembering the woman inside. I thought of the sadness in her eyes. Was that what awaited me? Would I become just another lost soul in this God-forsaken place? In a moment of defiance, I shouted, "No!" My voice cut through the oppressive silence. "I won't join you!" The figure tilted his head, and an unnatural smile crept across his lips. "You don't have a choice." The ground trembled beneath me, and the trees around me twisted as if alive. I felt them closing in, pulling me toward him. It was happening again. The forest was shifting, changing.
Panic flooded my veins, and I bolted. I sprinted past the boulder, not daring to look back. I followed the rhythm of my pounding heart, trusting my instincts. Every instinct screamed to escape, but the forest seemed to conspire against me, leading me in circles. I gasped for breath, knowing I was losing my grip on reality. And then
I remembered a detail from the journal. "Find the clearing," it said. "The light will guide you home." I glanced around frantically. I had to find that clearing. Then I saw it, a bright spot through the trees, a glimmer of hope piercing the darkness. I raced towards it, pushing through the underbrush. But as I neared the clearing, my stomach dropped. The whispers rose again, louder, almost angry. Just then, I noticed shadows moving within the light, dancing like flames. If I entered that clearing, what would I find? My heart pounded as I hesitated. The moment stretched, and I was torn between the glimmer of hope and the suffocating dread. I clenched my jaw and stepped forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. That's when I heard something crack behind me. It was too close. My breath caught, and I turned around slowly, fear creeping back in. Something was moving through the trees. I could see a figure in the shadows, and it wasn't him. The figure stepped into the fading light, and my heart raced even faster. It wasn't the man from the journal. This one was smaller, hunched, with matted hair and clothes that seemed to blend into the shadows. I felt a chill run down my spine. Whatever it wasn't here to help me. "Leave," it hissed, its voice a low growl. "You don't belong here." I straightened my back, trying to muster some courage. "I'm just trying to get out. Let me pass." My voice quivered, but I stood my ground. The creature took a step closer, its eyes glimmering in the light like shards of glass. "You shouldn't have come," it warned. "He's watching." I scanned the tree line. The air felt thick with tension, and I could almost sense the man lurking just beyond my view. "Who?" I demanded. "Nothing that you can fight." The creature's twisted smile curdled my stomach. "You're not strong enough." Before I could respond, the sounds of rustling leaves filled the air, followed by a heavy silence that made my blood run cold. It felt like the forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I turned back to face the clearing. The light still breathed hope, but now I didn't know if it was worth chasing after. With every instinct screaming at me to flee, I knew I had to get off this path. A sharp pain shot through my ankle, reminding me of my fall and how unprepared I was for whatever was to come. But retreating from this creature felt wrong. I needed to break free from the clutches of the forest. "Why are you helping him?" I asked, gathering my confidence. "Don't you want to escape too?" It chuckled darkly. "He offers a way to stay forever." I pressed my lips together, fighting against the urge to give in. "I won't become like you," I declared. "I won't stay." Suddenly, the ground quaked, sending vibrations through the air. The creature staggered but maintained its sinister grin. "You are tied to the forest. You can't run from what you became." I felt a surge of panic wash over me. This was it. The forest wasn't just a prison, it was a living, breathing entity, and I was a part of it now. The figure slowly moved back into the shadows, as if expecting something more to happen. Bracing myself, I took a deep breath and stepped towards the clearing. The whispers grew louder, almost chanting in a language I couldn't understand. My heartbeat quickened. That's when I saw it. Just beyond the edge, half hidden in the brush. A discarded shoe. My breath caught as I recognized it. It was mine, from the hike earlier that day. The realization hit me hard. No, this can't be happening. I turned to face the woods, anger flooding through me.
I'm not just another lost traveler." But the forest seemed to laugh, branches swaying as if they shared a secret. And in that moment of despair, a gust of wind swept through the clearing. I was plunged into total darkness. I stumbled back, my heart racing, desperate to find my way. Now I was truly alone, the whispers rising to a deafening chorus. I stood still, engulfed by the darkness. The whispers morphed into a cacophony, each voice pulling at my sanity. "Get out," one hissed. "Stay with us," another coaxed, dripping with allure. I clamped my hands over my ears, desperate to shut it out. I took a step forward, instinctively reaching for the ground. My foot found purchase on a root slick with moisture. I froze. My heart thundered. Was it just the tree, or was something else breathing nearby? I slowly pulled my hands away, trying to peer into the void. My thoughts spiraled. My shoe lay out there. What else had I left behind? Had I truly wandered deep enough for it to recognize me? Another rustling, a sound like snapping twigs, pierced the air. I flinched, reeling back against the rough bark of a tree. I needed to escape, but where? The forest felt alive, wrapping around me like a vice. "Hey, is anyone there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. I wasn't sure if I wanted an answer. Silence answered instead. Then, from the shadows, a faint glow sparked to life. The ember of a fire? I squinted, trying to discern who or what sat by it. The figure was cloaked, features hidden, but a familiar shape emerged. It had to be him. I tried to push through the branches, but they clawed at me, snagging my sleeves. I pulled harder, fueled by a desperate need to know if it was really him. I caught glimpses of movement, shadows swirling near the light, but I couldn't see clearly. The whispers only grew louder as I fought my way forward. "Stop!" a voice commanded, deep and familiar. My heart sank. It was the man from the journal.
"Who are you?" I cried out, fear bubbling to the surface. "What do you want?" He just sat there, a smile creasing his lips, his eyes glinting with amusement. "You're brave, I'll give you that, but brave doesn't get you far in these woods," he replied, his voice smooth like honey. "I'm not here for your games," I shot back, adrenaline fueling my anger. "I just want to leave." "Leave," he chuckled, "but you've only just arrived. The forest has plans for you, you know. We all have our roles to play." "What does that mean?" I pressed, stepping closer to the flickering light. I could see now. He was no longer entirely human. The longer I stared, the more he transformed, shadows lengthening around him, twisting into grotesque shapes. A sharp pang of recognition sliced through me. "You're like that thing from before," I whispered. My legs felt weak. His grin grew wider, revealing teeth too sharp and far too many. "It's so much fun to become what you're meant to be. We all belong here, don't you see?" The wind howled, and the shadows around him danced, drawing me deeper into despair. I stepped back, feeling the press of the forest closing in. I turned to run, but something caught my ankle, bringing me crashing to the ground. Panic surged as I scrambled to my feet, but the laughter rose around me. They were all there, watching. The whispers spoke my name, blending it with the slightest hint of a chant. Then a piercing scream broke through the chaos. I whipped around, heart pounding, and my breath caught in my throat. One of the shadows lunged forward toward the source of the cry, and darkness swallowed everything again. I was alone. Or was I? In the silence, I realized something even scarier. The whispers had changed. Now they were calling my name. And they wanted me to come closer. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to collapse into terror. The whispers fell silent, but their absence felt like a scream of its own. My name hung in the air, heavy and beckoning. I closed my eyes, clenching my fists to steady myself. I needed to focus. I needed to find a way out. I turned slowly in place, trying to gauge which direction led back to the path, to safety. The shadows in the corner of my vision teased at the edges of my sanity. Just beyond the flicker of fear, a memory sparked, a promise of escape. I remembered my lantern still in my bag, waiting for me to find it. The moment I thought about it, a chilling realization struck. I had to move away from this cursed area, and fast. Steeling myself, I pushed through the branches that had snagged at me before, each scratch a reminder of the danger within the forest. I stumbled forward, breathless and trembling, the darkness twisting ever closer. But then, in the fading light from my brief encounter with the fire, I noticed something on the ground, a small light flickering faintly like a dying star. It was my lantern. I lunged toward it, fingers brushing against the cool metal just as another rustle broke the stillness. No, not again. I snatched it up and fumbled for the switch. The whispers flared to life as if the forest was enraged at my discovery. "Stay," they hissed in chorus. "Join us." With a flicker, the lantern sprang to life. Warm light flooded the area, casting shadows away. But the brightness only revealed what I dreaded most. Figures lurked at the edges of the light, their faces hidden. They seemed to twist and morph, their shapes flickering like flames in the wind. "Will you come play?" one shadow said, stepping closer. It was the voice from the fire, smooth and seductive. "Your turn is near." "I'm not playing," I shot back, voice trembling. I started backing away, clutching the lantern like a shield. "But you've been chosen, haven't you?" the figure laughed, and his shadow stretched farther. "The forest has always needed you." I turned and ran, the light illuminating the path ahead, but the laughter followed me. The shadows were relentless, darting just beyond reach as I sprinted through the trees. Branches whipped at me, and roots threatened to trip me with every step. Then I heard it again, a scream. It emerged from deeper within the woods, piercing through the laughter and whispers. It twisted my heart. Someone was in trouble. A flicker of bravery surged in me, and despite the fear choking my throat, I hesitated. Should I help, or should I escape while I still could? The lantern held steady, but the shadows behind me pressed closer. I had to decide. Just as determination settled in, the scream transformed into my name. "Help me!" It was a desperate plea, echoing between the trees, drenched in a haunting familiarity. In that moment, clarity struck. I didn't just have to flee. I needed to understand whatever darkness awaited me. I couldn't leave without knowing who or what was calling for help. Before I could second-guess myself, I turned and ran toward the sound, hoping the light would fend off the shadows. But as I pushed deeper into the woods, I realized I might be running into something much darker than I ever anticipated. The lantern flickered ominously, and in the distance I caught a glimpse of someone watching me from the shadows. "Who are you?" I demanded, voice raw. The only response was silence, thick and suffocating. Then, without warning, the lantern went out. I felt the world around me plunge into a suffocating blackness, the kind where even the air seems thick. Panic clawed at my chest. "No!" I cried out, fumbling with the lantern, desperate to restore its glow. But it remained unresponsive, a dead weight in my hands. The shadows seemed to smirk at my fear, closing in as I stood paralyzed. I could feel them creeping closer, touching my skin like icy fingers. The silence shattered once more when I heard the whisper, just behind me. You shouldn't have come here. I spun around, heart racing. The voice was different, deeper and more menacing. I couldn't see anything, but the malicious presence lingered like a thick fog. "Who's there?" I shouted into the darkness, my mind racing with each possibility. I took a step back, bumping into a tree. The bark scraped my skin. Instinct kicked in. I needed to move, to get away from whatever was watching me, but every direction felt wrong. I was lost. Just then, a flicker of light appeared further off, like a beacon urging me forward. Without thinking, I dashed toward it, fighting through the underbrush, driven by a mix of hope and dread. The light grew stronger with each step, illuminating a small clearing. There, in the center, stood a figure cloaked in shadows. But unlike the others, this one seemed almost human. Its features were blurred, but faintly recognizable. It was a woman, her face flickering like a candle's flame. "Help me," she repeated, but her voice sounded distant, like it was coming from another time. "Who are you?" I gasped, hesitant but compelled to get closer. As I approached, the light flickered ominously again, dimming, and the figure shuddered. "I can't," she whispered, her face contorting in a grimace. "I'm trapped in the dark." "Trapped?" I echoed, swallowing hard. "How can I help?" "In the forest, the shadows keep us. They take what they want." Her words tumbled out, each one laced with urgency. "You have to find the heart of the woods. It's the only way." Before I could question her, the shadows surged around me, growing darker and more intense. "No!" I yelled as they swept toward the figure, wrapping around her like a vice. "Don't take her!" But it was too late. With another scream, the light blinked out completely, leaving me isolated once more. Desperation ignited in me, and I stumbled backward, my breath escaping in gasps. I had to find this heart she spoke of. Then something flickered at the edge of my vision, a glimmer of silver among the trees. I rushed toward it, hardly aware of the branches snagging at me. I had to know. I had to uncover the truth hiding in this cursed forest. As I reached the glimmering object, a chill swept through the air, freezing me in place. That's when I saw it, the glint of a knife stuck into the ground. The blade was smeared with fresh blood. My stomach churned as I processed the sight. I was not alone in this forest, and whatever darkness dwelled here had its own stories. Stories that might soon include me. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind me, heavy and deliberate. The laughter returned, echoing off the trees. I turned, heart racing, knowing I was being hunted. I stumbled backward as the footsteps grew closer. My mind went blank, overshadowed by primal fear. Whoever or whatever was pursuing me wasn't just hunting for fun. They were intent on something darker. I could hear the rustling leaves and crunching twigs underfoot. They were right behind me. "Think," I told myself. My instinct screamed for me to run, yet I felt rooted to the spot. I glanced around for a direction to flee, but found nothing more than a wall of trees that felt impossibly tall and oppressive. Then I saw it, a narrow path winding away into the forest, partially hidden by shadows. It felt almost welcoming, in contrast to the sinister darkness surrounding me. I took a breath and darted toward it, adrenaline surging with every step. Branch after branch whipped against my skin, but I pressed on, clenching my teeth against the pain. I would not stop until I found safety, or at least a chance to breathe without that echoing laughter gnawing at my sanity. As I ran, the thudding sounds behind me intensified, growing nearer. Shadows lurked just beyond my sight, watching, waiting, hungry for my fear.
I glanced back, and my stomach dropped as I caught a glimpse of something moving. Silhouettes darting through the trees, twisted forms obscured by the gloom. They were not human. I picked up speed, my chest burning as I pushed through the thicket. I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears, matching the rhythm of my footsteps. To my right, I noticed a glimmer of light flickering intermittently, the only brightness in the oppressive dark. Forget the shadows. I forced myself to focus on that light, whatever it was. I reached it, but it wasn't a sign of safety. It was an old lantern swinging from a tree branch, its glass shattered and the flame long extinguished. I felt the weight of despair settle in my chest. What was I doing? The laughter rose again, echoing through the air. It was mocking and sinister, wrapping around me like a cold blanket. I turned, just in time to see a dark figure stepping into the clearing. It was tall and lean, an elongated shadow with no distinct features. A shiver ran down my spine. "Please, just let me go," I croaked, my voice weak yet desperate. The figure remained silent, but as it stepped closer, I noticed something dragging behind it. A rope. My heart stopped as I realized what it meant, but couldn't bring myself to scream. In that instant, something deep within surged, a fierce, instinctual will to fight for my survival. I mustered the courage and lunged for the thick underbrush on the other side of the clearing. I tore through it, branches scratching at my arms, as I felt the presence rush after me, relentless and tenacious. Just when I thought I was losing ground, I stumbled upon a small, rusted key lying on the ground. It was half buried in the leaves, shining dully under a faint shaft of moonlight. I grabbed it, not knowing what it could unlock, but I felt an urgency
to keep it close. As I pressed onward, the laughter morphed into a rumbling growl, echoing behind me. The shadows snarled. The heart of the forest awaited, and it felt close. I had to press on. No way could I let it claim me. But as I ran, doubts crept in. What could this key possibly unlock? And could I really survive whatever was trailing me? Answers might be waiting, but so was danger, closing in with the darkness. I burst through the tangle of trees, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The growls behind me echoed in the dark, shattering any hope of calm. I had no idea what lay ahead, but the woods felt alive, their very shadows waiting to consume me whole. Panic clawed at my throat as I chased an elusive feeling of safety. Then I saw it, a structure peeking through the dense foliage. My heart leaped. It was an old cabin, half hidden but still standing. A flicker of hope ignited within me. I dashed toward it but didn't slow down. I reached the door and grabbed the rusted handle. It turned easily, swinging inward with a creak that echoed in the silence. I stepped inside, hoping for solace, but the darkness swallowed me whole. The cabin was small and musty, filled with the scent of rotting wood, and something else, something more unsettling. I quickly scanned the interior, searching for any means of defense. My fingers brushed against an old shovel propped in the corner, its blade dull but reassuring. Grabbing it, I felt slightly more secure, though fear still gripped me like an iron vice. The laughter returned, a low snicker this time, echoing from outside. It sent shivers racing down my spine. I began to back away from the door, searching for a place to hide. Glancing around, I spotted a trapdoor partially obscured by dust and debris. Without thinking, I sprinted to it, pulling the wooden cover off with a desperate yank. It opened into darkness, but I had no other choice. I jumped down into the void. As I descended, I braced myself for whatever might await me. The thump of my feet against the hard earth was muffled by a heavy silence. I landed in what felt like a small cellar, the air still and musty.
I fumbled for my phone, but realized too late that it had slipped from my pocket during the chase. I caught my breath, listening intently. From above, the laughter had faded, replaced by rustling sounds drifting down through the floorboards. I peeked around the small space, trying to discern my surroundings. The walls were damp and lined with jars, their contents murky and unclear. My stomach twisted as I wondered what they contained. I focused on the key in my pocket, suddenly feeling its weight press against me. I scanned the room for a lock, something that could reveal secrets hidden within this dank space. In the far corner, I spotted a small, ornate chest.
Tarnished with age, but still intact. Could this be what the key unlocked? I crept toward it, my heart racing. With trembling hands, I inserted the key into the lock and turned. The mechanism clicked softly, and for a heartbeat I felt a surge of hope. But as I lifted the lid, a foul stench slammed into my senses, and my breath caught. That's when I saw it. A collection of items arranged with eerie precision. A woman's locket, a broken compass, and something that looked suspiciously like a small bone. I stumbled back, dread filling every ounce of my being. What had I just uncovered? As I closed the chest, a loud crash echoed from above, shaking the floor beneath me. Panic surged back to the forefront of my mind. Someone, or something, was coming for me, and this time there would be no escaping the darkness. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. Time felt like an enemy as I glanced around the dim cellar. The air was thick with dust and fear. The realization of my potential fate loomed heavier than the shadows. I had to act. With a final haunted look at the open chest, I turned back towards the trapdoor. The noise above me was insistent now, punctuated by footsteps, heavy and determined. I raced to the door, panic coursing through me again. There was no way I could go back up into that cabin with whatever had been hunting me so closely behind. I cast a desperate glance to the walls, searching for any alternative exit, but the damp earth closed in around me like a tomb. Then I noticed a slight glimmer in the corner, a narrow window near the ground, barely larger than a shoe. If I could just squeeze through, maybe I could escape. I dashed to the window, kneeling and pushing my hands against the damp dirt surrounding it. Just as I pulled at the edge of the frame to pry it open, I felt the floor beneath me shudder. A loud crash echoed from the room above, shaking the trapdoor. I didn't have time to think. I pushed my shoulder against the frame, my breath steady as I wedged my body through the small opening. I'd never fit through something so small, but adrenaline coursed through me, igniting strength I didn't know I had. With one final heave, I squeezed through, scraping my arms against the rough edges. I landed outside in a heap, dirt flying in all directions. I pushed myself up, looking around frantically. The moonlight illuminated the forest beyond, casting eerie shadows that danced between the trees. I could still hear the crashing sounds from the cabin, and my heart raced as I turned to run. Adrenaline propelled me forward. I dashed into the trees, branches whipping against my face, scraping my skin as I made my way. I didn't bother to look back. I just focused on putting one foot in front of the other, prayers urging me faster. But the woodland seemed alive, as if it had turned against me. The whispers returned, brushing against my skin, clawing at my sanity. I remembered the lingering pieces of the journal. The forest has a will. Just then, I stumbled upon a rise in the ground, a small cliff leading to an overlook of the valley below. The land dipped into a bleak clearing, framed by the glistening shadows of the trees. I paused, breathless and filled with dread, knowing I couldn't rest. The figure felt closer now, its presence growing stronger even from afar. In that moment of desperate reflection, a flicker caught my eye. A light pulsed near the edge of the clearing, soft and warm.
My heart pushed me forward. I had to get to it. I felt the weight of the shadows heavier against my back, but I couldn't stop now. As I drew closer, an avalanche of doubt flooded in. I recognized the glowing figure, a silhouette dimly waving below. The shadows danced around it, cloaked like a crowd eager for my downfall. The closer I got, the more I saw. It was the woman from the locket, a reflection of the sorrow that had drawn me in. "Help," she urged again, the sorrow and urgency filling her voice, twisting with each syllable. "You mustn't let them claim you. Come, we must leave." I felt the forest quaking with rage when I realized. Shadows began to spiral around her, eager to draw me in. The voice of the man echoed in my thoughts. "You're part of this now." With renewed determination, I broke through the remaining branches and sprinted toward her. "I won't be part of this," I shouted as I crossed the threshold into the light. But just as I reached out, I felt a hard pull at my back. A darkness lunged at me. I spun around, finding the figure closing in, laughter mingling with the whispers raging around me. "You can't escape what you are," it taunted, shadow limbs reaching for my arms. Just then, the woman's light brightened, a shield of brilliant warmth. The shadows recoiled momentarily. "You must focus," she urged, her eyes imploring. "Draw it in. You can break free." I took a breath, grounding myself. The horror around me ebbed. I imagined the sunlight pushing through the branches, the earth solid beneath me, the warmth of life igniting within. I reached out for her. "Stay with me." But the shadows knew. They lurched forward again, their voices united in a spinning whirl, a vortex threatening to consume everything in its path. I could feel their icy grip tightening around me, drowning out the warmth of her glow. "Believe," she cried desperately, face aglow with an unwavering urge. I dug deep, pushing against the looming tendrils that wrapped around my soul. I had to choose belief over fear, hope over despair. I steadied myself, drawing the light inside, into my thoughts, into my heart. In that moment, I visualized light bursting forth. I yelled, "I will not join you!" As her radiance enveloped me, the shadows wailed, collapsing dramatically as if losing all power. I felt their hold slip, disintegrating as calm settled around us. The darkness retreated, thrown back, dissipating into the night. In one breathless moment, it was quiet. The forest stilled, leaving only the faint rustles of the wind among the trees. The woman smiled, and I felt the heaviness ease slightly, though uncertainty still lingered. "You've done it," she murmured, her voice softer now, almost wistful. "But remember, you're never truly free of the forest." Before I could respond, the ground beneath us trembled, tending toward the familiar. The placid surface of my thoughts pulled in a disorienting fashion. Reality began to blur and shift around me, fading back into darkness filled with echoes. I stumbled, grasping at the air as the world twisted, and I felt myself being pulled into something profound, a darkness beneath the surface where questions remained unanswered. That night left me with too many mysteries, leaving me to wonder how I would return, or if I'd ever truly escaped. The forest breathes, and I wonder who or what is still watching. And each night as I lay in bed, I think about how close I came to losing myself in the depths of the whispers, how shadowy figures still lurk at the edges of my dreams. I guess I'll never know what truly awaited me out there, in the darkness beneath the trees.